Welcome back to Syntax Layer. Today we're going to cover basics of React like project setup, props, and components. Let's get started. So for project setup, I'm going to use white. You can use white or React app, but I'm using white. Before we go ahead and do something, I have to mention one thing that you need to have Node installed in your computer. If you have Node installed, NPM will be automatically installed and then you can follow along. Okay, so please first go ahead and install Node in your system and then follow the steps. Okay, great. I think that let's copy it again. Yes. Okay. The first time we did not copy. Okay. So white provides a lot of different options. Okay. Um, components. So we can select React, TypeScript, and then let's open up the project that we created this right now. Okay. Okay. So that's how you can create a project basically. Basically, if you want to create a white project, you come to npm create white latest, then select React, and then select TypeScript. That's it. Your project will be created. And we have three basic files. One is packet.json, and one is tsconfig.json. If you want to specify some TS rules, you can do it here. And there is one white config.ts. So if you want to specify some rules specific to white, you can do it here. And okay, one more thing I forgot to mention. See, everything you can see here is red. Like if I open SRC, if I go to app.ts, everything is in red color. Now, why do you think is that? It is because we have created a project, but we have not installed the dependencies. So for installing the dependencies, we need to run npm i. So whenever you create a white project, make sure to run npm i. So it will install all the dependencies. So what dependencies will be installed? So all the things that are mentioned in packet.json will be installed. So this dev dependencies and these dependencies which are present will be installed to your system. Now after installing, the errors will be gone. That's it. So look at now. The errors are gone, everything is working clean. Okay, let's start. Let me remove all of this. Let's start from the basics. We don't need this. We don't need this. Okay. So the first part that we're going to cover is today's JSX. JSX stands for JavaScript and XML. So JSX is simply like HTML that can be written inside JavaScript. So this is a functional component. You can see you can call it a functional component because we are using the function syntax. And here, let's say this is a normal HTML component. You can see this is its normal HTML tag, h1 tag, and inside that h1 tag, I'm adding one text like hello React. So this is what JSX sounds like. JSX is JavaScript inside your, sorry, HTML inside your JavaScript. So let me run it for you and show it to you. See, now you can see hello React on the screen. Now, whatever you write in this return statement, that will come into the screen basically. Now, where is the JavaScript part coming here? Let's say, okay, I've created a name JSON. That's a variable I created as JSON. Now, I can use that name inside my HTML. So now, hello JSON. See, this is one of the main uses of, I mean, not exactly kind of use like this, but we can use something like this. Okay, let's move ahead. And couple of rules to be followed when we are writing with JSX. That I forgot to mention. There should always be a single parent element. Let's say here you can see there's only one parent element. Then it's fine. If I add one more parent element, let's say like div, then there will be an error because JSX supports single parent element. You can't have multiple parents elements. You should always and always have one single parent element. Now you might ask, like there are multiple parents inside this single parent alone. How is that valid? So what the rule says that you should have one single main parent element, and inside that you can have children elements. That's fine, but the parent element should be always be a single element. Now, what is this element actually? Forgot to tell you. What is it? This is called as fragment. This is called as fragment. Okay. So what is a fragment? Fragment is similar to div what we have like how we have in HTML. What does div do? Div basically groups a couple of tags which are of similar type and then we can assign some styles to it. Let's say if I create a div right over here, so let's say if I want to apply some styles in HTML, whatever I will do, I can come here, create a class, apply styles. So div is the block level element, so that will be applied to this element. So basically, I'm grouping these two H2s into one single component, not a component basically, one single style in the format that I want. The same way that I can do it with fragment also. Fragment I can't apply styles and all like this, but I can group couple of elements in. I can make them a single article inside a single parent element. I can make these elements as children element inside a parent element. So fragment, you can consider fragment as somewhat similar to like div, but the only difference is that it is not rendered in the HTML DOM tree. So it's better to use it. So if you use div, that will come up inside the DOM tree and that will keep on adding as many divs you add, that many divs will come up in HTML DOM tree. With fragment, there is no problem of that. That won't come up in the DOM tree. So it's better to use fragments. Okay. With fragments and DOM tree, let's go ahead. What? Okay. Now, one more thing. So, let's say you're gonna create couple of items. Okay. So, what I'm trying to do. So, I'm gonna show you one use case which is normally done in React. So, let's say you have a list of elements, something like that. Let's say apple, banana, orange. You have an array of elements. What's a common thing that mostly done in React is that. So, it's like we're gonna take that list and we're gonna map over it. It is simply a map. This is simple JavaScript map function that you're writing here, not an UL, but a view. Okay. Now, if you go into the browser, you can see apple, banana, orange. Okay. So this is how you can basically list or map over a list. We have a couple of list elements, and then we map over it. So this is how we can use JavaScript inside your HTML. So you can have a normal tag, text tag, or else you can create a variable and you can assign it in here, or else you can map over the list and you can render elements something like this. Okay, moving along. Let's go and create some components. There are mainly two ways to create components. One is class components, and another one is functional components. Okay. So nowadays people are not using class components with the addition of hooks. So I'll explain what is that. But let's focus mostly on functional components that we are going to create. So today we'll discuss about functional components. Let me create a functional component. One thing to keep in mind when creating components is that the first letter should always be a capital letter. Here G is capital letter. So this indicates to React that we are creating a functional component. I mean, sorry, not a functional component, we're creating a component. So there are multiple ways to create a functional component. It's like a normal JavaScript syntax that we do. One is basically using arrow functions that we normally use. And another thing is that you can use a normal function syntax. Okay, so what are functional components? Functional components which are nothing but which starts with a which have a functional syntax is known as functional components. And we can use hooks inside them. Basically, we can use React hooks, and I'll explain what is hooks later. But what is the main use of components? Why do we need components? Components are the building blocks of React. Like let's say, if you want to break a big piece, break UI into small reusable components, that is where the components come into part. Let's say you're creating a, let's say maybe you're creating this layout. You can divide this into this section into one component like left bar, and you can divide this section into one more component. You can divide this one more section into component. You can divide multiple UI parts into individual components, and you can go ahead. Okay, now coming to the components part, I'm going to create using arrow syntax because I love arrow functions. Okay. Now components generally return a JSX and that we can use it in our components. Let's say, let's say we use these components in my React component. Okay, see here you can see hello everyone has been displayed here. So this is coming directly from that greeting component that we created. Okay, so now what is the use of components? I told you it's a reusable way, right? If I want to create maybe multiple hello everyone, I don't need to rewrite multiple times hello everyone. I can simply write copy paste the greeting component, and I can do. See, you can see multiple hello everyone's being added. Let's say you might think, okay, why I can't write maybe that directly instead of writing greeting. So let's say if it is a single hello everyone, then this is fine. Let's say you have a lot of content. Select we'll add some load and content here. And let's say if you need to write this for 3 times, how much time it will take? I mean, it's not about copy pasting into a single thing, but it's about actually creating a reusable components. What do you mean by reusable components? Let me show you actually. Let's start with actually taking. Let's start with the item. Okay. So what I'm trying currently doing is that okay, I'll explain you what. This is another concept which you are getting into. It's known as props. I'll explain you what is props. Please give me 1 second. Let me type this thing out. String, container string. Okay. Now what is props? Let's come here and let's discuss props. Props are short for properties. Okay. Props are short for properties. So what are props basically? If you want to pass data from one component to other component, you basically use props. So if you want to share some data from your parent component to the child component, you can use props. So what kind of data you can pass? So let's now you can see there are 3 errors coming up. Okay. So what are all these errors and what we can do? So what is the error is that item is missing in the required type box. We mentioned that it requires an item and we are not passing that item here. So that is what React is throwing error on. Basically, it's asking for us to throw this item. And here, let's say, okay. Now, by doing that, I can use one component and but I can name many things. Let's say I can use one component to name apple, banana, orange. Multiple things can be named by using a single component. This is the use of props. You can basically pass different values from parent component to children components. So basically, if you want to share data between components, you can use props. Okay. So this is how it is, and this is the syntax. Basically, you generally this is one way of writing it. Other way is that I'm going to show you that it here. No, actually, I'm gonna because it is easier if I don't comment and write it. Okay. Now, another syntax is that the first one is always a props keyword and we return props dot item. So this is another way of writing the prop syntax. But instead, here I directly use a destructuring and I use that one. But this also works fine. This also does the same job. Okay, I just remove the hello thing. So if I add this hello thing, that will work fine here also. Okay. Look at it. So this is one way to write props, and this is another way to write props. Basically, we did an object destructuring here. That's the only difference, but I'm going to go back to that old method. Okay. Okay, fine. Now, what we are talking about props. So, what are props? Basically, we told we it's a way we can share data between components, right? So, we can do a couple of things here. Like, let's say if we do it If I add, oh my goodness, if I can add, yeah. Now, let's say, what is the meaning of this? This means it's an optional prop. Let's say there is no item for this one. Now, nothing will happen. There is no orange here because we told it's an optional thing. Optional, the question mark indicates it's an optional prop. So what does optional stand for? So something that doesn't need to be mandatorily specified. It can be optional. You can have it or else you cannot have it also. That's perfectly valid. So this is what optional syntax. Let's say it's something. Let's actually show an example where it breaks the code. Let's say, let's do one more thing. Let's pass greetings here. Um, let's pass greetings here, and I'm gonna pass. Okay. Now it is obviously gonna throw error because okay, we haven't integrated it. Okay. Okay. Now we need to understand the first rule. This is a single parent element, and we cannot wrap multiple parent elements inside it. So that's why we need to convert it to a fragment first. Rules of JSX, and then insert this NH1. Return. Okay. Now what's the issue? So now let's okay. Now let me explain the other part. So what we did, we passed that list to each component and we are rendering that list inside each component. Okay, like something like this. Now what is the issue here? Let's say we made this item one as an optional one. Now immediately you can see there's an error coming up. So let's ignore this error for now and let's go ahead and let's see what will happen. Nothing is happening. Everything is working fine. It is because we are passing the item swap in all the values. Let's say we don't want to pass the item swap right over here. We remove it. It's approximately valid because we told it's an optional prop, right? We can have it or we cannot have it. So why, if I don't pass it, what will happen? Let's see what will happen here. Oh, my entire code is gone. Okay, why this could be? Let's say in console if you have any errors. You have multiple errors, cannot read properties of undefined map. They were in the greeting component. See, we are getting errors directly in the console. But why is that? Because what is the error is that we told items can be optional and we are telling that we are map. We can't map over something that is not present. That is what JavaScript is throwing error. It's telling, hey, you told this can be an optional and again you're mapping over it here. That's not possible. So one way to fix this error is simply by adding a question mark here. If you add a question mark right over here, everything will come back to normal. The other way to fix it here basically is using items. That one is also works. So you can do different techniques, but let's go for a simple one. So this is how you can specify props and properties. So this is a short form of prop basically. Props are nothing but a way to pass data from one component to other component like this. And here you can have optional props or else you can have mandatory props. And in props basically you can use them in the JSX to return something or else you can use it in the other component to calculate something. Okay. So, and these are components. Components are reusable UI parts of a main page. You can call something like that. Okay. We'll talk about next. We'll talk about uh, data sharing between simpling properties and all in the next video. Thank you guys.